Hello again. This is the video for The Great Gatsby, Chapter 3 of our discussion. In this chapter, Nick finally meets the Great Gatsby himself, almost completely by accident at Gatsby's party. Meets him without knowing it's him. I'm not going to focus a lot on the party or the meeting because so much of it is pretty self-explanatory. It's so opulent and so extravagant and so ridiculous that it almost doesn't need to be discussed at all. But it is a good scene to analyze if you're doing some sort of analytical paper just about, like I talked about in the previous video, how the name The Great Gatsby, he has this showman quality about him, right? He surrounds himself with all of this circus-like atmosphere. Even the things like the car accident or the guy in the library or all the dancing and the food and it's ridiculous, it's excessive and opulent, and that is all to mask something within Gatsby, as again we'll see later in the novel. I want to focus more specifically on the end of the chapter when Carraway breaks the narrative to comment on himself, specifically about the very last line where he says that he is the most honest person he knows. The problem with that is he the problem is that it's hard to believe somebody who expresses that about themselves. It's that whole "the lady does protest too much" thing from Hamlet, where if you have to come out and tell people that you are the most honest person you know, it really brings into question just how honest you are, right? And especially in a novel where he is retelling the events of his summer in New York, he has already gotten drunk and explained that, the details of chapter 2 are hazy because of that. He Things are described in shadows and myths, right? And it's done with flowery language without ever being truly transparent, right? In that first chapter, he talks about how he reserves judgment. Well, do you reserve judgment or are you honest, right? Because honest people are not afraid to state what they see or what they believe, right? So if he's talking about honest, he's just talking about his own personal feelings through this. Which is interesting because before he says that, he talks about a relationship he had with a girl that in New York that he just kind of let wither because the girl's brother was giving him nasty looks. Well, that's not a very honest way to break off a relationship. If you've been on a few dates, right, you don't ghost them. You don't, text and say that you're breaking it off. You gotta step up and, explain. And who knows? It might have been something that, the lady could have explained. Oh, well, my brother is this or my brother is that, or been like, really? I didn't know that. I'm gonna talk to him. It's gonna be fine. Right. So it feels like there is something underneath in that relationship that he is not being forthright about, and thus brings into question his honesty. Also, his relationship with Jordan Baker, right? At first, he says he likes it because he likes to have, a golf champion on his arms, in his arm, and but then he talks about how there are things about her he doesn't like, and he is kind of hoping that this, like that previous relationship, just kind of fades away into nothing. So again, That's not a very honest way of conducting yourself. And I bring this up because then that calls into question everything we see about the novel, right? Because he is the one narrating this. He says he is honest, and yet he doesn't act in an honest manner. He says he reserves judgment, and yet here he judges Jordan Baker based on a few dates that he went on with her, right? So we have to question his integrity as a narrator. Is he being honest with us, right? And even if he is being honest, can we trust that his perception of things is really what happened? He's already been drunk once in the first three chapters. He was on his way again to get drunk in the third chapter until Jordan Baker showed up and he felt more comfortable. So we have to question his integrity as a narrator. Now, ultimately, this is all part of the point, one of the points of the novel, right? It has to do with perception, it has to do with believability, it has to do with that divide between Midwest values and Eastern values, right? The Valley of Shadows, as we talked about in chapter 2. Carraway needs to stay in his place because these are worlds that he is not ready to be a part of. But yet, here we are. He is telling us these things, and he tells us that he has this great respect for Gatsby in the first chapter, but then also highlight just how opulent and extravagant and truthfully chaotic his parties are. So, where do your values lie, right? So, this is going to be a short video because most of it is the party, right? And it's these descriptions of just how I keep saying that word, how extravagant Gatsby's lifestyle is, right? But then in the middle of it, you meet Gatsby and he seems so unimpressive. He's constantly getting called away or taken away from the party to take phone calls from different places, right? People don't know who he is. He is the host of these parties. He has been having these parties for who knows how long, right? And yet people don't seem to know who he is. He just shows up, talks to people, and Carraway is like, "Yeah, my neighbor, this Gatsby guy, and he goes, "Oh, I'm Gatsby. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't know you were Gatsby." No, none of us did. Nobody does because he does not match the lifestyle that he is putting on. And we'll see why later. But I wanted to highlight the whole Carraway thing because as we get further in the novel, you have to question Carraway's motives and his intentions and just his view of the world and how it is skewed compared to the world of these other characters. Okay? So next time, chapter 4. Have a good day. I'll see you soon.